The Pittsburgh Steelers win in prime time on Sunday night against the Las Vegas Raiders, 23-18. In a game that I was very much looking forward to. I wanted to see if the Steelers offense was going to be progressing. The last two outings hadn't been very good. I thought this one was a little bit better. It was a step in the right direction. Although perhaps maybe the step may have been a baby step, it was still a step in the right direction. What we're going to do is we're going to break down some of the plays that occurred this past Sunday night. Some of them that are good, some of them are bad. What we're going to be breaking down is the quarterback decision, the offensive line protection, and the scheme while we do it. So without further ado, let's get into this. So here's the first pass play of the night. It was on this drive. And in this situation, you have a concept at the bottom where you're going to see the receiver slant and the tight end come across in an X formation. And then at the top, you have a couple of curl comebacks. I think, in my opinion, he thinks this is man. And the reason being is because Najee Harris is going to go in motion, and you're going to see Robert Spillane kind of follow him. Now, if that ends up being the case, and this is man, you're going to see one of these guys come open. However, unfortunately, this is cover 2 zone. One of the coverages that Kenny Pickett struggles with. And in this play, you're going to see Calvin Austin right there in the middle come open as he sits right in the middle of the zone, wide open. He should be watching Robert Spillane. And as Robert Spillane isn't crashing down on Najee Harris to cover him, you have this cornerback here in front of Calvin Austin running towards Najee Harris. He should know that this is a zone at this point and know where to go with this ball. Now, at this point, I think he's actually looking at, and I think that's actually Allen Robinson. I'm sorry. He's about to sit in the middle of the field. He's not going to get a lot of yards, but it's not nothing. Said Kenny Pickett kind of runs into trouble and throws the ball away. We'll see it from the other angle so you guys can see the protection that's going on. So Robert Spillane goes. Kenny's watching right here. His eyes should be on Robert Spillane and the safety, what they're doing, if they're running zone, if they've changed it, if it was different, pre-snap than post-snap. And you can see Allen Robinson come open right in front of him. He just doesn't take it, moves, and puts himself in a little bit of trouble. On this play here, this is another play that's a little bit troublesome. You're going to have cover 1 and man. Basically, you're having this safety is going to run up to the top, the one that's circled. He's going to be covering everything atop. You're going to have George Pickens do a 2 yards and then slant, running right into the open area. You have a bunch outside of the left tackle that's really congesting that area. You have a lot of the guys that are covering those passing options, and then you have a receiver up at the top as well. So all the traffic and everything is going to the right side, to the left side, I'm sorry. This is also, you have 6 people coming in towards Kenny Pickett. I think the offensive line does well. And right here, it appears that Kenny Pickett is looking at George Pickens. He has, a better positioning than the outside cornerback. He's going to be running a slant. It's wide open. And Kenny just decides not to throw it to him. Now, who he does throw to is Calvin Austin, who is circled in green. And he ends up coming open as well. However, it's just a very bad pass. But as you can see, put our eyes back at Kenny Pickett. There's a pretty good pocket there, and he's doing that. I don't know who he's trying to avoid in this situation. This is where I think that he's seeing a little bit of ghosts. I think Kenny Pickett's gotten hit a few times, and, he's seeing and feeling pressure that's not there. So he runs out of a clean pocket, looks downfield, sees Calvin Austin. He's about to come open. He sets up to throw the ball way over his head. So those were the first, 2 passing plays. I think there was a screen in between there. I took out the screens and any plays that the defense covered well. We're going to be looking at about 19 of, I think it was like 28 pass attempts. So majority of them, but anything that was screened and quarterback didn't have to make a decision or things like that, I took those out. This is the touchdown pass, the deep one to Calvin Austin. This is the perfect play called for this defense that they're showing. It appears that off the bat that there is man coverage across the board. with a single safety up top. Right here, you see motion by Allen Robinson, and that further indicates that this is man. And this is the concept that's being ran. George Pickens is going to run up to about the 38 and then come in. Yeah, Pat Fryermuth who's going to go up and then crash towards the middle of the field. And then Calvin is just running a go. Kenny Pickett does very good in this play is he holds off the safety by looking up to the George Pickens. And he's looking up at the top of the route there. In my opinion, I think he's actually looking at the safety. He holds him. The safety ends up turning his back towards Calvin Austin. You already see Calvin Austin leaving at this point at the bottom of the screen. Turns around and throws a dime. 50, 48 air yards. And he's gone for the touchdown. So the decision was right. The execution was good. The scheme, the routes that the receivers ran, that was great. Let's look at the protection. Who I think makes this play is Jaylen Warren. He sees the hole opening up in the offense, and he goes to fill it. He knows someone's coming, and it's Max Crosby. Gives his quarterback enough time to find the open receiver running down the field. So we go from perfect pass, perfect play, perfect execution to probably the exact opposite. This is the almost pick six. So in this scenario, you can tell there's motion. Nobody's really following him. So we can assume that this is probably going to end up with zone. The only question mark is going to be at the top of the screen. You have what looks like press coverage on receiver at the top of the screen. Connor Hayward goes in motion. This ends up being zone across the board, cover 2. And this is probably the most plays for Kenny Pickett to dissect for some reason. This one, and maybe cover 6 as well. But in zone, like I've said before, the money spot is going to be in a couple of places. You have along the sideline between the cornerback and the safety in a hole shot. And then you also have the weak part of the zone, which is going to be between the numbers and the hash marks between the safety and either the linebacker or the cornerback. So this is the route. What I think Connor Hayward is supposed to do is run a flat out here towards the sideline. That's where the ball was going to, but he ends up curling it back up. So right here, we should see that the linebackers, especially this linebacker that he's looking at, isn't trying to run after anybody. You have the safety backpedaling. You have this cornerback backpedaling, many of them backpedaling, looking towards the quarterback. That's a pretty big indication that we're going up against zone. Right here, I think that this play needs to be thrown right here to George Pickens right before he gets to the hash marks. And I think that this has got a big possibility to go for a big gain. Instead, he chooses the under route. And I see why. If Connor goes to a flat and he sees this cornerback, on the other side of George Pickens, I don't know, maybe he thinks that he's going to follow George. In my opinion, number 24 has probably the worst position for the route that's running right here. I would have thrown this to George Pickens all day. Now, I think that Connor Hayward sees number 24 and maybe he's an option. If the cornerback crashes down towards him, he takes it up the field. If he follows George, he cuts it down to the flat. Maybe that's the option there, but either way, they're on the wrong page, and this one almost goes for 6. Let's see the protection. Was Kenny Pickett under a tremendous amount of coverage there? Not really. So let's look at the next play. This is going to be what appears to be cover 2, man underneath. You can see that, just pre-snap, you have 2 safeties up top and everybody's playing press. Now, could they fall out of it? Obviously. There is something called your pre-snap and your post-snap read. So this is what the defense is doing. And this is the perfect play for this type of scheme that the defense is running. You're going to have Calvin Austin take his cornerback out of the area and run, up the seam. The safety is going to have to go back deep to cover his area. And George Pickens is highlighted in green. Perfect. So this is another instance where Kenny Pickett just, I don't know. I don't know if he's not reading it right. I don't know if he's not seeing it right. You have trips up the top, right? You have three, passing options up at the top, and you have three cornerbacks out there, or defensive backs. They're not up close to him. They're pressed off a little bit. At the bottom of the screen, you have Calvin Austin and number 24. He's way back. Off the bat, this should tell the quarterback there's a good chance this is zone. And like I said, your money part or your money zone is right during that box. That's where I like to hit the zone. If I was an offensive coordinator and calling plays, this is where I would design for the play to go to, is in the soft part of the zone. So what you have up here at the top of the screen is you have a man beater concept, and at the bottom of the screen, you have a zone concept or a zone beater concept. So at the top, George Pickens is going to run a straight, and Calvin Austin is going to come underneath him and come across, and then Pat Freiermuth is going to, loop around the formation and go up and then come back. This would be a good play to call against man. In fact, this same concept is called later against man and almost works to perfection. There's some execution issues, but it wasn't on the quarterback and it wasn't on the play call. It was more on the receivers in that instance. But, at the bottom, you have a receiver, Calvin Austin, going into the weak part of the zone, and you have Jalen Warren coming and doing a out here, and that's going to pull the outside linebacker, which is going to make this zone area very open. So right here, you have these guys, these receivers at the top of the screen lined up, and you have Kenny Pickett looking in that area. You don't have any of these guys crossing. Any of these defensive backs, they're not crossing to try to maintain with their man. It should be very obvious at this point, a zone defense playing up the top, and you should probably cancel out on this concept here, because this concept, you have different options that you can throw to, but it's all based on that you're going up against man coverage. Kenny, for whatever reason, continues to look out that direction. The only way this play could have worked is if maybe perhaps you had a running back run out into the flat here where the red area circle is, and you could have this cornerback, forced to come down. And then you would also have to have your receiver here run a different route and go up the field to kind of pull this middle linebacker out. And then you have the comeback open for Pat Freiermuth. But by this point, you should know this play definitely isn't going to work. Everybody's in the right position. This player here that circled, he's going to come all the way across, but these middle linebackers have him in the zone. They got him. He's not going to leave anybody. But for whatever reason, Kenny Pickett just kind of sticks it out there, and now he's finally looking off. And unfortunately, he ends up taking a sack on this play. But he runs right into Max Crosby. It's a little bit frustrating. But this ends up being a sack. Could have been a play that went for a lot. This is third down. This should have been a touchdown, ended up being a field goal. Let's watch it. So you have the running back in motion. You have Robert Spillane coming from way outside back to the middle of the field. That's a pretty good indication that this is going to be a man. These cornerbacks down at the bottom of your screen occupying or defending these wide receivers. You also see that two of the cornerbacks are pressed up, right? So this looks like press on this side, single high safety. And here is the routes that are being ran. You're going to have the middle receiver, which is Pat Fryermuth, go up and basically try to pick the cornerback that is covering Calvin Austin. And then you're going to have Allen Robinson kind of take a step in and then go up and around. This is also to get in the way of Calvin Austin's defender. It almost works. You know, had they blocked them, it would have been a pick play, so they can't touch them necessarily. They just going to have to kind of get in the way. And as you can see, there's Pat Fryermuth trying. And, you know, if Allen Robinson kind of takes a little bit slower of a release here, he would be in the way of this cornerback, and Calvin Austin would be free. Instead, Kenny has to throw a back shoulder fade, and it doesn't work. I think that Kenny Pickett is probably a lot more comfortable the back shoulder type of passes with Deontay. Every time that the Pittsburgh Steelers were under center, it was either a run or a play action pass. There was never a designated pass out of under center where it wasn't a play action. So I know that there was a lot of folks that were saying it's becoming predictable, and to a certain extent it was, you know, especially when they were running the ball. But what it did was it made for some big plays, including a touchdown pass a little bit later in this game happen. The defense was expecting a run and crashed in. So this is a zone play. There's motion. And you see the safety kind of go all the way up, and he's expecting a run. And then as you can see, he's running back. He's not expecting that this was going to be a play action pass. And Kenny hits George Pickens here in the zone. I think he takes a little bit too long to get rid of the ball. As you can see right here, he's looking down the field. He has Darnell Washington. I believe that's Darnell Washington coming open. Also right here, he has George Pickens already open. You see how long he holds onto the ball, and when he finally decides to throw it, it makes this catch a lot more harder than it should have been. Here's another play. Well, this looks like there's man coverage underneath. You're going to have the wide receiver be the option here. This is George Pickens. This is actually a pretty good decision and choice by Kenny Pickett. He's going to throw the back shoulder pass. It's just very good coverage by your cornerback, and you know you're going to have that sometimes. This is another play. As you can see, the Raiders ran a lot of cover 2 and man underneath throughout this entire game. It's going to be a similar play where you're going to have a back shoulder. Now, the cornerback got a little bit tied up and pulled down Calvin Austin there, and pass interference. Got a big play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But that was a good choice, good decision to throw the ball there. This is another good decision by Kenny Pickett. He sees the cushion that he's getting, his receivers in, and just decides to throw it out there very quickly. Gets a couple of yards. Nothing too crazy. Gain of like 4 yards. So this is getting a little bit different, right? Kenny Pickett is starting to pick up the defense, so to speak. And so the defense has to adjust. So on this play, they do a half of the field is zone, half of the field is man. And against the concepts that they're running against, this ends up being a really good play by the defense, and really nowhere for Kenny Pickett to go with this play. I mean, there is George Pickett and Robert Spillane there. I didn't see that earlier. He's right there about the 20 and the 30. But at that point, let's see where Kenny Pickett was. So Kenny Pickett's looking. You have Robert Spillane as your middle linebacker there. You have Allen Robinson coming across. And you're going to see Allen Robinson coming across. You can see the zone kind of cover all these crossing routes. And Robert Spillane is, I don't know, I think you might try to figure out a way to just toss the ball out there. You know what I'm saying? But Kenny runs up. Oh, this is the running play that he got a lot of yards on. Good decision. There really wasn't anything open outside of maybe perhaps George Pickens, but that's just because that's a mismatch nightmare, not so much because of the play design. But, you know, Kenny didn't see it. And I'm not sure, given the pressure that he was, starting to get, that he would have gotten there. And here's another play where we have complete zone across the board. Keep your eyes on the slot receiver. I believe that's Calvin Austin. I don't get this play. You see where he's looking at? He's going to run towards the middle open area of the zone. And Kenny Pickett is leaving a clean pocket. In main completion, but this should have been a much bigger play. So you have on this play here, you have man, there's a lot of press with cover 2 over the top, it appears. This is a good play. Here, you're going to have crossers coming across. You have Allen Robinson and George Pickens running towards each other. And what you're going to see is Allen Robinson's going to try to pick George Pickens' guy right here. You have Calvin Austin running to go to get this cornerback out of this area right here where you see the 30. So right there, you see how Allen Robinson just kind of barely touches that cornerback, makes him go around. Kenny Pickett sees that. It's going to throw the ball on time, and this ends up being a really big game. Good scheme, good call, great execution. So we have man here, zone at the top. This is the whole shot. This is one of the plays that Kenny Pickett does struggle with, is you're going to have this open area in the zone where that green box is every time on a whole shot. In fact, bottom part of the screen, you're going to have it open as well. If I was a defensive coordinator, I'll be honest, I wouldn't run anything man. Everything would be zone across the board, cover 2, cover 6, quarters, or cover 3. I don't know if I'd run quarters against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They normally don't go deep. That's unfortunate. And, he's looking this direction too. I just don't get it, and I don't understand why he's even looking this direction. If you have a similar play on both sides of the field, a similar concept, and the defense is running the same concept on both sides of the field as well, you would assume that the closer side of the field would be your first read versus the further part of the field, given the fact that the ball would have to travel further distance across the field, thus giving you or the safety a better opportunity to go make a play. Sometimes he looks in the wrong direction. Now, I don't know if he's being trained that way, to look in that wrong direction. I doubt it. I don't know if he's just not trusting his eyes and what he sees down the field. But it becomes a constant thing. I'm going to look at it from the protection Kenny Pickett did. Did he leave a clean pocket? Yeah, and ran himself into an issue. Now, this is on the touchdown drive. This is where I think Kenny Pickett started to grasp it. You're going to have cover 2 zone as well. This cornerback that's covering over George Pickens in this situation is going to drop back, and I guess he's a safety is going to kind of stay underneath. So they're basically switching places. See, now they do a little bit of a play action pass that kind of sucks in the inside linebackers and the safety as well. Wide open. He sees them. He sees the leverage that George Pickens has and hits him in stride. Great play, great decision against cover 2 zone. Showing that he can do this. Oh, this is a little bit of razzle dazzle. This play was always going to go to Jaylen Warren right here. Great job. Great game. Like I said, I really didn't have very many complaints about the scheme and the play calls and the concepts that were thrown out there. Keep your eye on Pat Freiermuth. This is another zone play. You have how this concept works and why this play is also a great play. You have Allen Robinson running underneath. He's going to attract both of these middle linebackers to come in, and that allows Pat Freiermuth to curl back into the weak side of the zone. And Kenny Pickett hits him. First down. Like, this drive here was kind of like what we saw in preseason. Now, this is the touchdown pass. Again, Steelers under center, either run or play action pass, right? You got motion. You can tell because of the motion that the cornerback was following him. So you're assuming that you're having a zone play right here. I mean, a man play, sorry. And it sure is. And as soon as the fake happens, number 5 bites in. He's been biting in all game. Leaves Pat Freiermuth open for days. Touchdown. That was the best drive for Kenny Pickett and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we'll watch it from the protection. You can just see number 5 biting in, and he lost it from the word go. 2 touchdowns for Kenny Pickett. His first 2 touchdown game for him. You know, like I said, you know, going through this game, yeah, there were some plays that, you know, he left out on the field, but it's always best to learn from these things with a dub. It's harder to learn from these things with a loss. Steelers are 2-1, technically first place in the AFC North, and getting better. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think about this analysis and breakdown. Let me know if you like it. Let me know what you thought went right, what you thought went wrong, and where I was right or wrong. And we'll see you next time. I think next time I'm going to do the rushing plays between Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris, so we can see exactly what defenses are doing to the running backs and how the offensive line is blocking, and, you know, which running back is basically doing better or not. And then I might even do a defensive one. We might look into some Joey Porter plays before this upcoming match in Houston, which is a game I'm gonna be at. I'm gonna be at that game. So if you guys are out there, hit me up. You can check me out on Twitter. It's State of Steelers. With that being said, see you next time. Peace.